It's my pleasure this morning to introduce my good friend, Reverend David Shaw. How long have we known each other now?
11 years.
11 years? It's been a great 11 years. Reverend David has taken on a lot of responsibility over those 11 years. He's served on the board in multiple positions. He's now been our board president for some time. I appointed him as the assistant minister when I became the senior, and he and Reverend Lisa take care of probably all of the clerical duties here at the church.
There's Patty now.
Pardon me?
There's Patty now.
And with Patty now, okay. And so I hope that if you haven't already, that you become a real fan of Reverend David's. He's one of the sweetest, biggest hearts walking on two legs on this planet. And it's my pleasure to call him friend. Please help me welcome Reverend David Shaw.
Geez, now I have to do my Calvin and Hobbes Calvin thing. And I too am a child of I was born in 59. I don't know about her, so I'm technically a child of the 50s. But in the 60s, I listened to all my siblings' music. And right now in my car, I'm doing the Monkees. I love the Monkees. And I know all the words. I actually have been surprising myself the last couple of days because I know what song is next because I have the albums memorized from being a kid. Moving on. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I've done this sermon twice in the last 7 years, but Spirit said it was time to bring it out again. So I want to talk to you all today about Spirituals Principle 6. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I don't think this is the most important principle. That's number one, but this is my favorite. So in social psychology, the Golden Rule is known as the reciprocity principle. It says that in many social situations, we pay back what we received from others. The earliest known statement of the maxim of reciprocity, reflecting the ancient Egyptian goddess Mayet, dates to 2000 BCE. Now this is the command, do to the doer to make him do. The next example of the Golden Rule is in the Code of Hammurabi in the late 1700 BCE, an eye for an eye. That is expressing the Golden Rule in its prohibitive or negative form, which was also a common principle in ancient Greek philosophies. Examples of the general concept include Thales saying, avoid doing what you would blame others for doing. Sextus, the Pythagorean, that's not the right pronunciation. There you go. It wouldn't come out. What do you not want to happen to you, do not do it yourself either. And Socrates said, do not do to others that which angers you when they do it. Those examples are all from 200 BCE to 400 BCE. Sorry, editing on the fly. A common way of expressing the negative Golden Rule is simply, don't dish it out if you can't take it. I've subscribed to that all my life. The Golden Rule has shown up throughout recorded history, as I pointed out, in more than 20 religions. My last count was 26. In the New Testament, Matthew 7:12, Jesus said, do to others what you want them to do to you. This is the meaning of the law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets. Jesus' teaching goes beyond the negative formulation of not doing what one would not like done to themselves to the positive formulation of actively doing good to another. If the situations were reversed, one would desire that the other would do for good for them. This formulation, as indicated in the parable of the Good Samaritan, emphasizes the need for positive action that brings benefit to another, not simply restraining oneself from negative activities that hurt another. You're creating something new, something further, not neutral or negative. So here's the parable of the Good Samaritan from Luke 10:25-37 in the New International Version. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" Jesus replied. "How do you read it?" The expert in the law answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But the expert in the law wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down the road from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed to the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, and he bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Jesus said, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Even humanists, otherwise known as atheists, subscribe to the Golden Rule. In the view of Greg M. Epstein, a humanist chaplain at Harvard University, "Do unto others" is a concept that essentially no religion misses entirely. But not a single one of these versions of the Golden Rule requires a God. It's not mentioned anywhere in any of them. Maria McLaughlin, in her book, Think Humanism, said, "Trying to live according to the Golden Rule means trying to empathize with other people, including those who may be very different from us. Empathy is at the root of kindness, compassion, understanding, and respect, qualities that we all appreciate being shown, whoever we are, whatever we think, and wherever we come from. And although it isn't possible to know what it really feels like to be a different person or live in different circumstances and have different life experiences, it isn't difficult for most of us to imagine what would cause us suffering and to try to avoid causing suffering to others. For this reason, many people find the Golden Rule's corollary, do not treat people in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself, more pragmatic." So again, back to the negative because it's safer. View. So we have seen philosophers, prophets, and leaders all advocating the Golden Rule. Yet, why is such a simple rule so hard to follow? One reason offered by many critics is that it's not realistic. The German philosopher Immanuel Kant criticizes the Golden Rule as not being flexible enough in various situations. Kant explains that a prisoner would appeal to a judge asking him not to send him to prison, because if the Golden Rule applied, the judge would not want to send the prisoner to prison, because the judge wouldn't want the same verdict to be done with the judge. Thus, in Kant's opinion, proving that the Golden Rule should not be practiced as such due to the fact that the position of the judge varies from that of the prisoner. However, I'm no world famous philosopher, but Kant's wrong. Because if the judge would point out that if the judge had broken the law, the judge would want justice upheld and be tried in a court of law because the judge believes in justice and the rule of law and has staked his career on it. He would want to be treated in the way of the law, and he would therefore treat the defendant that way. Another thing is if you are an employee or a boss, you need to practice the golden rule. Say if you're a manager and your boss tells you to fire a few people, if you agree with the reasons for termination, you would fire them in a way that you would want to be fired. In other words, you wouldn't want to be fired in public, yelled at, or ridiculed. You would want to be fired in private, in a professional and caring manner. Now, if you didn't agree with the reasons for their firing, you'd have a different ethical dilemma of whether to follow orders or die on a sword. But that's a sermon for another time. George Bernard Shaw wrote a different criticism. Do not do unto others as you would that they should do unto you, because their tastes may be different from yours. This suggests that if your values are not shared with others, the way you want to be treated will not be the way they want to be treated, so you shouldn't do anything. Well, the counter to Mr. Shaw's criticism, he's besmirching the good name of Shaw, by the way, is that you should take into account your neighbor's tastes because you would want him to take yours into account. Just because you like mustard on your French fries doesn't mean your neighbor likes it too. And I only know 2 other people besides me that like mustard on French fries, so I'm definitely not putting that on yours. The philosopher Ian King echoes this criticism of the golden rule, saying, to do unto others is dangerous in the wrong hands, because since some fanatics have no aversion to death, the golden rule might inspire them to kill others in suicide missions. So a counter to Mr. King's criticism, which I don't really criticize that, it's part of another thing I talk about in a different place that Spirit said don't include it. I encourage you to look at the golden rule this way. Using negative form, if you don't want to get killed by a suicide bomber, don't be a suicide bomber.
That makes sense.
So transitioning out of that visual is challenging. So I'll just bring us back to everyday life. The next time you go shopping or driving on the road, remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, in the positive. Be kind to those less fortunate than you, as if you were in their place and you would want others to be kind to you. So back before my father-in-law passed, when he was like his late 80s and early 90s, I was like his personal assistant. And so I'd take an assistant. I'd take him to appointments and stores and restaurants. And I often noticed that people held the door for him because of his age. And at those times, I would say out loud, thank you. And I'd say to myself, you're practicing the golden rule. And when people would push us out of the way to rush through the door and close it in our faces, sometimes I would say out loud, excuse you. And I would say to myself, if you get to his age, you will regret all of the negative karma you have caused. Another thing, when you drive in the streets, be sympathetic and patient with other drivers as you would want others to be with you. I have to say this one is hard for me because I sometimes honk at people driving poorly on the road. It's almost always when they're going 25, 30, 50 over the speed limit. So when I make mistakes or bad decisions on the road, I am willing to accept the honks that come my way because I dish it out. In any situation you may face, always think to yourself with an honest heart, how would you feel if the actions you are taking would be taken upon you? Remember to love, live, and forgive as you would want to be loved, lived with, and forgiven. There's 2 parts of this that I didn't put in. Spirit said, don't. And now they already had me add one scribbling, and then the other one, they said, okay, add it now. So you can interpret the golden rule in 4 ways. And one is the negative, with the dangerous in the hands of fanatics, because, no, it wasn't that one. If your values aren't shared with others, you don't really want to inflict your values on others. And the example I used before, I can't even find this writing I did, is if you were abused as a child, that's what you know, and that's what you expect. So as you become an adult, you think that's normal behavior. And so you would abuse the people around you. Well, no. Just because that's what happened to you doesn't mean it's right or good. Doesn't follow the golden rule. And then the 2 middle ones were, one's wrong and one's right, and one's right and one's wrong. I don't remember that example. But the other example is where with the values thing again, since you don't know what the other person likes, that's the challenge of empathy, is to go, okay, I'm going to do something for this person. They don't like mustard on their French fries, so I'm definitely not going to do that. But they do like ketchup, so I'll pass the ketchup to them when their food comes. And that's not a value I have, but it's a value they have. So that's a way of doing the golden rule to the best of its ability, is actually considering the recipient and what they value in life, and making your answer fit them, not fit your construct of the world. And then the other part that they said when I was sitting there, so you got to excuse my scribbling because I got arrows going from this part to that part because they gave it to me in disjointed order. So something I noticed after saying the spiritual principles for the first couple of years is that 3 of them say believe and 6 of them say affirm. And they said not to say why, to let you all ponder that and leave you with something to think about. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention.